We begin with former President Barack Obama scaling back his 60th birthday bash as COVID cases rebound. White House correspondent David Martosco is joining me now with more. David.
You only turn 60 once, Thomas, but avoiding a super spreader event is trumping everything these days. The former president was expecting hundreds of celebrities, Democratic fundraisers, and officials from his White House. Some of them had already arrived on Martha's Vineyard when the Obamas announced they were calling it off and keeping it small. So George Clooney, Steven Spielberg, Oprah Winfrey, they're all off the hook, and nobody's going to risk a Delta variant COVID infection just for paying their respects to the 44th president. Don't pity Obama, though. He's going to mark the big 6-0 with Michelle, Sasha, and Malia on an island where he owns nearly 30 acres of oceanfront property and a $12 million mansion. Happy birthday, Mr. President.
David Martosco. Thank you, David.
The spread of the Delta variant has forced former President Barack Obama to scale back his birthday plans. He had invited hundreds of guests to Martha's Vineyard to celebrate his 60th birthday on Saturday, but now most of the celebrities and former administration officials have been told to stay home. The party is now just for family and close friends.
Thanks, everyone. Governor, were you invited to Obama's 60th birthday party?
No. But I can tell you, if I were invited, I would have declined.
Why?
Because I think 700 people at an event like that is not a good idea.
Even though it's outside.
Judgment call all the way around, but that's the beauty of judgment calls. We can all make our own decision about what we think is most appropriate to us. You know, if I were to have a large family gathering outside at my house, that family gathering would involve at least one person who's over the age of 90. That would be my father, who I visited this weekend, and I wore a mask the entire time I was with him. One of the things we know absolutely about COVID is if you have multiple comorbidities, if you are over the age of 75, and especially if you're over the age of 85, you are at extreme risk of getting severely ill if you get that virus. And therefore, you know, any big group that involves people who fall into those categories, I think people should either put them off or be really careful. Because for some of us who don't fall into those categories, maybe COVID's not as big a deal, especially if you're vaccinated. But even if you are vaccinated, among some of those more vulnerable populations, we should all be very careful. And by the way, no one's going to know who's vaccinated and who's not at that, I think, based on what I've heard.
Former President Barack Obama is planning to celebrate his 60th birthday with a party on Martha's Vineyard. But some are questioning his decision as COVID cases climb. Brianna's back with more. Brianna?
Liam Obama will turn 60 years old tomorrow, August 4th, and his birthday party is set for this Friday on the Vineyard, an area with moderate COVID-19 spread, according to the CDC. The party will be held outside with COVID protocols in place, including testing for guests, and there'll even be a COVID safety coordinator on site. But with breakthrough cases of the Delta variant on the rise, some are questioning if the birthday bash is a good idea. Press Secretary Jen Psaki was asked if Obama is setting the wrong example.
Is President Obama setting the wrong example about how serious COVID-19 is by hosting a big birthday party with hundreds of people this week?
Well, I would certainly refer you to the team who is working for my former boss to give you more specifics of what the protocols are in place. But I would note first that former President Obama has been a huge advocate of individuals getting vaccinated. This event, according to all the public reporting, is outdoors and in a moderate zone.
Well, the Obamas vacationed on the Vineyard almost every year of Obama's presidency. There is no word yet on who will be in attendance, Kate.
Go ahead.
And about public health at the border, is the president concerned that migrants who are coming in great numbers are not being tested for COVID at their first point of contact with Border Patrol?
Well, let me give you a little bit of an understanding of what actually happens when people come across the border. First, as to Katie's earlier question, there's been no change in Title 42, so families and single adults are expelled, if possible, when apprehended at the southern border. That's step one. Those who can't be expelled are often placed, and this I think goes to your question, in alternatives to detention programs while their cases are being reviewed. CBP provides migrants with PPE from the moment they are taken into custody, and migrants are required to keep masks on at all times, including when they are transferred or in the process of being released. Our other protocol is if anyone exhibits signs of illness in CBP custody, they're referred to local health systems for appropriate testing, diagnosis, isolation, and treatment. That is our process.
Okay, and then just about COVID safety, is President Obama setting the wrong example about how serious COVID-19 is by hosting a big birthday party with hundreds of people this week?
Well, I would certainly refer you to the team who is working for my former boss to give you more specifics of what the protocols are in place. But I would note first that former President Obama has been a huge advocate of individuals getting vaccinated. When CDC has provided guidance on is for indoor settings in high or substantial high zones of COVID cases. This event, according to all the public reporting, is outdoors and in a moderate zone. But in addition, there is testing requirements and other steps they are taking, which I'm sure they can outline for you in more detail.
But is there any concern, just because, as you've said here, and you've had people saying over the last couple of days, vaccinated people can still spread this Delta variant around. So is there concern that this President Obama birthday party might become a super spreader event?
Well, I think, Peter, the guidance is about what steps people can take when they're in public settings. Indoor settings specifically was the new guidance to keep themselves and others safe. In terms of what protocols they are taking, I would refer you to them, and I'm sure they can give you more details.
And just last one. So people who are watching this at home and they see, well, President Obama can have a party with several hundred people. Should they think that it is okay for them to have a party with several hundred people now?
Well, we certainly advise everyone to follow public health guidelines, which I know the former president, who is a huge advocate of getting vaccinated, of following the guidance of public health experts, would certainly advocate for himself as well.
As the U.S. grapples with a spike in coronavirus cases and new mask guidelines, former President Barack Obama is gearing up for his 60th birthday, reportedly planning a 700-person party in Martha's Vineyard. White House correspondent for Fox News Peter Doocy asked Press Secretary Jen Psaki about the potential super spreader event. Let's take a listen.
But I would note first that former President Obama has been a huge advocate of individuals getting vaccinated. When CDC has provided guidance on is for indoor settings in high or substantial high zones of COVID cases. This event, according to all the public reporting, is outdoors and in a moderate zone. But in addition, there is testing requirements and other steps they are taking, which I'm sure they can outline for you in more detail.
People who are watching this at home and they see, well, President Obama can have a party with several hundred people. Should they think that it is okay for them to have a party with several hundred people now?
Well, we certainly advise everyone to follow public health guidelines, which I know the former president, who is a huge advocate of getting vaccinated, of following the guidance of public health experts, would certainly advocate for himself as well.
Joining us now to discuss is Democratic strategist and owner of JC Strategies, Jennifer Holdsworth Karp, and Senior Director of Policy at the Conservative Partnership Institute, Rachel Bovard. Welcome to you both.
Good morning. Good morning.
So, Rachel, let me start with you. What do you think is a bigger deal here? The potential optics, the hypocrisy here, or the kind of weird corruption that it suggests is endemic to our political system at this point? That a former president, who was, fairly, middle to upper middle class going into politics, is now, hosting a celebrity-clad event on his 30-acre estate in Martha's Vineyard.
Right on the coast, by the way, where we're advised the hoi polloi are advised to not buy property because climate change will destroy it in a matter of seconds. But if you're Barack Obama, no problem. But I think a little bit of both, right? Most striking, obviously, right now is that we're in the middle of this CDC-induced panic about coronavirus again because of their deeply irresponsible statements last week, amplified by a hysterical press, begging for clicks that somehow the vaccine doesn't work and somehow we're all at risk for Delta variant, when we know if you're vaccinated, the risk from the Delta variant is very low. But it doesn't matter because everywhere, especially where I live in DC, things are shutting down again. We have a mask mandate, regardless of whether you're vaccinated or not, regardless of how many people are inside. If you're inside, you have to wear a mask. So all these rules are being applied again. But, here you have Barack Obama casually going about his 700-person birthday party with Pearl Jam, in Martha's Vineyard like nothing's happening, because we know after a year that, if you're an elite in this country, you have a different set of standards. And we know that they won't be punished, and they know it. And that's why he doesn't even make a statement about it. Like, everybody coming is vaccinated or all these things that we know he's taking precautions, but he doesn't have to say anything because he knows he's never going to get called on it regardless. And that, to me, in this moment is just an unforgivable sort of breach of protocol in my mind.
Yeah, Jennifer, I'm curious if you think that this actually is kind of showcasing a little bit of a division inside of the Democratic Party. I mean, we're hearing a lot of stories about, well, there's a lot of division amongst Republicans, amongst the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers. But I've actually been wondering if there's a bit more division inside of the Democratic wing where some people are saying, no, we've got to go back into lockdowns and masks, and others are saying, I'm kind of fed up with all of this.
No, I haven't had that at all, actually. Not even a little bit, not whatsoever. If there's going to be a mask mandate, it's supposed to protect the unvaccinated. I think President Obama is leading by example. I wish the former president, the immediate former president, would be so great about the events and rallies that he holds. Everybody is required to be vaccinated and, by the way, show proof of vaccination. There's a testing requirement. The event is outside. I'm not invited, but so I'm not going to defend it. But, so what? I don't think it's hypocrisy at all. Democratic mayors and Democratic officials across this country have been the only ones leading to protect people in this country. Republicans have been irresponsible from the moment we all learned the word coronavirus. And I refuse to focus on a birthday party, an incredibly responsible birthday party, when there is irresponsibility all over this country, including elected members of the United States Senate who are, number one, still calling the virus a hoax, and number two, telling people not to get vaccinated, including an entire network that Mr. Ducey works for, who decided to change their mind a few weeks ago about vaccination because they were afraid they were going to get sued. That is the hypocrisy that I choose to focus on, not a birthday party that is going to follow every single public health guideline that has been put into the public. No, I see no hypocrisy there. There is no division amongst Democrats. And I live in DC too. Absolutely nothing is shutting down. There is a mask mandate to protect those who are unvaccinated. I think that there should be a vaccine mandate, so that's not required. But because there is incredible pushback from the right wing of the party in this country, that is why we have to have mask mandates now. That's what I'm focusing on. Not a birthday party of not the former president, but the president before that, who is a private citizen in this country. I'm going to focus on people who are actually hurting the citizens of America by telling them not to get vaccinated.
Yeah, Rachel,
so real quick, if I can respond to that. So I think the point here is that Democrats are taking this panic and enforcing new restrictions on everyone else. Here in DC, yes, there is a mask mandate. If you are vaccinated, you have to wear a mask. The city has over half of its population vaccinated, over 75% of its seniors vaccinated. And as of yesterday, had only 8 people in the ICU for the entire city sick with COVID. We have 84% hospital bed capacity. It's a massive overreaction being imposed on everybody else. And then you have people like Barack Obama being like, yeah, whatever. I'm not going to lead by example. I'm just going to, have a set of standards that applies to me and nobody else. You couldn't have a party like that in DC if you weren't Barack Obama, I guess is the point. And so I think it's deeply
overreact and have a mask mandate at his party, which you just said was an overreaction, or do you want him to follow the public health guidelines and lead by example? I don't think we can have it both ways.
I think when you have a number of people, who are going to be subject again, you have mask mandates in California, you have mask mandates here in DC. You couldn't have an event like this in DC. If I'm Barack Obama, I think you have 2 choices. I think you have to say, either I'm not doing this party at all because, yes, I agree with the Biden White House and I agree with the CDC that we are in grave peril and grave risk of the Delta variant. Or you simply say, you know what? I think vaccines work. I don't think the White House is handling this correctly. If you are vaccinated, you are protected from the Delta variant. And therefore, all of these mandates that, Democrat governors and mayors are talking about are ridiculous. I think those are the two choices that you have if you're Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And right now, he's not choosing either.
Presidents disagreeing with the CDC and the FDA because somehow a Republican president knows better than the FDA and the CDC. I think what former President Obama is doing is following the health guidelines. What President Biden is doing is not outwardly disagreeing and bulldozing the CDC and the FDA, which he's not supposed to do. What I do think we can focus on the hypocrisy of is, yes, there is a mask mandate in D.C. There shouldn't have been huge events that the mayor attended in D.C. That is wild hypocrisy. That is something that we can focus on.
And
but
Rachel,
I don't think what President Obama is doing is hypocrisy.
Rachel, I wonder if there's some way that this event could actually be used to help educate Democrats about what a proper way to approach this pandemic is, because as you said, in Washington D.C., when the CDC is taking its strictest line on the pandemic, the Democrats have been eager to say, okay, that's where we are. We're behind the CDC. When the CDC loosens its guidelines around opening schools or around anything else, then the Democrats move to a much stricter position than the CDC. So it's not that they're moving necessarily with the public health guidance. A lot of communities in Washington D.C. want to be as locked down as they possibly can. I remember in the very beginning of this pandemic, I was at a park with my daughter on a baseball field, kind of teaching her how to ride a bike, and a security guard that the city had hired kicked us off. There was no one, within a quarter mile, it seemed like, in any direction, but from a long distance, threw us off this outdoor area. And so, as we talked about earlier this week, you still see people in D.C., outdoors, wearing a mask while they're walking their dogs. So maybe there could be some way to say, look, Barack Obama is actually doing this in an okay way. He's saying it's an outdoor event. People are vaccinated. Relax. Take seriously the indoor transmission among unvaccinated people, but relax about the outdoor gatherings among vaccinated people, and that then would encourage the unvaccinated to want to join the vaccinated. Is there some way that instead of trying to turn this into some hypocritical circus, that we could say, actually, let's all do it this way. We all don't have 30-acre Martha Vineyard properties, but we all do have access to outdoor spaces.
Sure. I think that's a totally appropriate way to look at it, but that's not what he's doing. Like this, it requires him to actually make that statement, to say, look, I agree, that vaccinated people are not at risk. That is not what the White House has been saying for the last week, by the way. The CDC was saying, based on a study of 100 people from India with an AstraZeneca vaccine, they were saying, yes, vaccinated people can shed, the virus at higher rates. They can be, transmissible. And based on that, we saw a lot of hysteria. So it would require, I think, Barack Obama to say, I agree vaccines work. I do not think vaccinated people can actually spread the virus. I've looked at this study. This is what I think. And that this is now how I am choosing to have a party responsibly, to your point. I think this could be in a famous Barack Obama phrase, a teachable moment for a lot of people. But he's not doing that. He's not making any statement at all. He's just like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to have vaccinated, all my guests be vaccinated. Or at least that's what the story is saying, right? I don't think Barack Obama's made a public statement about it, but it seems like he's requiring proof of vaccination and all that. But the fact that he hasn't clarified this, he hasn't made this statement, suggests to me that he just knows he's just going to do what he wants regardless. And I think that's what people are responding to, because the rest of us have to live, under whatever, the whims of whatever mayor we're living on or living under, who decides things based on whatever their interpretation of the science has to be, which, as I've mentioned in D.C., I think is ridiculous.
Obama's declining to comment on this reminds me of what people used to say about Ruth Bader Ginsburg all the time. Ruth Bader Ginsburg doesn't owe you anything. Jennifer, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Next on Rising, Ryan Girdusky joins us to talk about populism and wealth.
News to tell you about. Former President Barack Obama is scaling back his huge birthday bash at his Martha's Vineyard mansion this weekend.
Yeah, we were just notified about this moments ago. The party planning had been in the works for months. It will now be a smaller gathering with family and friends. A spokeswoman tells us the event was put together in accordance with all public health guidelines and with COVID safeguards in place. But the president and Mrs. Obama have decided to significantly scale back the event due to the spread of the Delta variant. The party was going to be held outside, and ABC News reports the guests would have been required to submit a negative COVID-19 test. According to CDC data, Martha's Vineyard is currently considered a substantial level of COVID transmission risk, but once again, that party has been scaled down.